Hey everybody, Alex Miller at Capneon here. I wanted to talk today about some current events that bring together some of the narratives I've been talking about, and particularly the current conflicts between digital privacy and law enforcement needs. How are they going to be resolved? Do we even really understand them? What's going on? What's the specific event? So, about 10 days ago, the cryptocurrency exchange Huobi delisted 7 privacy coins, including Zcash and Monero. And so I should lead with this is not this particular delisting, a huge event. There's lots of other cryptocurrency exchanges out there. Other things have happened before. But as a broader trend, it's interesting evidence of this underlying conflict and how it's evolving. And what's the underlying conflict? So broadly, law enforcement feels like it has legitimate needs to get into people's information sometimes to investigate crime. And in this case, the crime is money laundering. Cryptocurrency at times can be very opaque. People have tried to make it very opaque and private in some sectors. And this creates problems. How do you investigate money laundering? How do you confirm that no money laundering has occurred? And so, in particular, money laundering very often involves you have a ton of bank accounts, maybe bank accounts in jurisdictions that are not super cooperative to law enforcement, very secret, have lax rules, and you move the money around in circles through all those bank accounts and back out, and then at the end you can say, oh, it came from over here, it's fine, it's not money I stole or made trafficking cocaine, etc. And cryptocurrency, unfortunately, has been a really natural tool to add into this game. I talked in a previous video about North Korean state actors have repeatedly used this kind of approach in the cryptocurrency world. Talked a little bit about Tornado. Privacy coins. What's a privacy coin? Zcash and Monero. These are coins that have extra cryptographic features to provide even more privacy. And they are in trouble here because they are making it harder. And maybe at the moment they've distinguished themselves in a problematic way for making it uniquely hard to get into these paper trails about how money has moved around and thus collaborate with law enforcement on enforcing these anti-money laundering rules. So it's worth noting what's the alternative like. When Bitcoin was younger, it was touted for privacy because it's essentially just a big spreadsheet maintained in a particular way. But you have a public key on there, and in the beginning, nobody knows that public key is you, and you have a certain number of Bitcoins. And really, all that's happening is when you send somebody else the Bitcoins, your number goes down, and then their number goes up. So if you can keep your public key secret, there's a lot of privacy there. At this point, everybody knows who everybody's public key is, and law enforcement has really caught up to that game. So if I was doing something everyday person and legitimate, maybe I buy some cryptocurrency from Coinbase, let's say. Law enforcement knows all of Coinbase's addresses. I have my private key. I have a paper trail. Maybe I decided to sell it later. I sold it back to Coinbase. You can verify that whole sequence fits my narrative if the cops come asking, hey, look, I bought it from Coinbase. I sold it back to Coinbase. There's no monkey business here. But then if somebody gives you $10 billion in Bitcoin on a paper wallet at McDonald's, that's a different story, right? All right, now let's bring it back to Huobi. Why are they acting as they act? So, people don't often put it this way, but one of the drives in the cryptocurrency world in the past few years has been a drive for increasing legitimacy, to get treated like another financial instrument, to be allowed to operate in this or that country, these kinds of things. And one business incentive people have is the more legit they can be, the more people are going to put their money in, which is good for these exchanges. Cryptocurrencies without these privacy features, in a way, because of the efforts of law enforcement to play this anti-money laundering game, have become unprivate enough that law enforcement is pretty comfortable with them. You can look at that public ledger and figure out a lot about how the money moved around and to whom, and this is maybe enough to do the anti-money laundering functions. And then if you can do the anti-money laundering functions, regulators look at you nice, and that's helpful on this drive towards later legitimacy. The problem with the privacy coins is they've been exactly designed so that you can't see that paper trail. Now you can't cooperate with it any money laundering game. And so if law enforcement comes by with some questions about a sketchy transfer, you are not able to reply. And in the long run, that's kind of a crappy situation for a going for-profit business to just be in a natural state of conflict with law enforcement and then sort of related regulators about how you can't play by the rules correctly. It's also interesting to look at this particular company, Huobi, because they started out in China. China has banned and cracked down on a lot of cryptocurrency stuff. So Huobi has mutated gradually to become a very global entity. They have offices in the United States and other places, I believe. They're publicly traded in Hong Kong. So you can very much see this sort of life cycle of this particular business kind of trying to stay ahead of the regulator, this, that regulator, and it's very international. Stay out of trouble and keep operating is a big part of the game. And so you could see why they might look with a little nervousness on these privacy coins that are going to create a problem for them or law enforcement or their relationship with the regulator down the road. To bring this all together, I just want to say I don't have time for this in this video. There's a similar story about your favorite chat app like WhatsApp that has end-to-end encryption features. Law enforcement feels like they should be able to get into this, and that's a kind of different technical problem, but a similar kind of values conflict. When you're designing this kind of technology, what's the right amount of privacy? Infinite privacy is not really legally tenable right now. And then if you're doing something legally weird, maybe your business is untenable too. So going forward, one thing you can look at, I would say these privacy coins are a bit of a canary in the coal mine. Maybe gold mine has canaries too. I don't know. Richer birds anyway. But there's a kind of litmus test here. How private can you make consumer tech before it runs into this other social imperative in the form of law enforcement? And there's a real conflict and maybe you can't get anymore. It's still evolving right now, and it's going to probably be evolving longer in that chat app world. So keep your eyes on it. It's going to affect you at some point, because I think basically everybody is at least sending chat messages in their phone these days one way or another. And it's going to drive, some of like what kind of privacy you can get doing that.